Water about our Advanced Purification Center. And I would like to introduce KJ Scott and Michael Ritchie, which are both public information representatives with the Office of Civic Engagement. So take it away.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for having us once again. It's a pleasure and honor to be here to speak with you all. So thank you for your platform. As Teresa said, my name is KJ Scott. I'm a public information representative here at Valley Water, and I'm joined with my colleague, Michael Ritchie, and we are both public information representatives to talk to the public and tell you about what Valley Water is up to, what are some of our projects and goals, and why we are doing what we are doing. So for those that have not yet, go ahead and before we close the poll, take the pre-tour survey poll just to give a post check of how you are feeling about purified water. And here is Dave Tucker. He should be with us a little bit later to answer some of your questions. He's a engineer we have here at Valley Water. He'll be our SME for the evening. All right. So a little bit of an agenda of how today's structure will go. Well, first, we're going to tell you a little bit about Valley Water, what we do. And then we're going to slowly talk about, some of the projects that we have going on in terms of, our drought messaging and things of that nature. And then we're going to slowly transition into our actual virtual tour. I encourage you all to come visit our tour in person when the facility opens back up to the public. Because it's a different experience getting to see and hear the machinery, working. But for the meantime, we're going to give you the best virtual tour as if we were on campus. And so, as I said, we'll talk about the Purification Center. At the very end, we'll have a Q&A wrap-up session. At any point, if you have a question, if you notice your toolbar, there is a Q&A function there. So use the Q&A function to ask any questions you may have. And if we do not address your question throughout the tour, we will definitely get to your question at the Q&A portion. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic off to my colleague, Michael, so he can get us started.
Thanks so much, KJ. Appreciate it. And once again, welcome. And thank you so much for your participation and your attending our virtual tour. So today is all about water reuse, but we do want to give you some context of what Valley Water is about. So just some background information on Valley Water. So you might also know us as our previous name, Santa Clara Valley Water District, but now we go by Valley Water. We made that change about 3 years ago. So there's 3 things that we focus on here at Valley Water, and those are safe, clean water, flood protection, and healthy environments. And just a little bit about healthy environments. So we're very concerned about the water as it comes into our system here in Santa Clara County. So if it's in the waterways, it's in the watershed, which is the areas around waterways. We want to minimize any pollutants that are in the waterways. So we were all about also cleaning up trash and that kind of thing. So we have all sorts of cleanup programs that you might want to check out. We'll talk about those later on. Alrighty, so 3 things that we do. And now I'll tell you a little bit about, of course, our domain for Santa Clara Valley Water District, Valley Water, is Santa Clara County. So the most important thing for you to know from this graphic is that we don't provide water directly to residents, and for the most part. We provide our water to water retailers like San Jose Water Company, and they provide water directly. The total population in the county is, with commuting and all those sorts of things, about 2 million. And but we do directly work with 4,700 well owners. Now, this next graphic, you'll see quite a comprehensive system that we manage in the county. So all sorts of things happening here. First of which to tell you about is there's 10 reservoirs. When I first saw this graphic, I could not believe there's actually 10 reservoirs in Santa Clara County, but that is the case, and we do manage those 10 reservoirs. All these lines that you see, for example, the red lines, those are represent the pipelines that are coming from the Hetch Hetchy system, bringing water into the county from the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. The orange lines are bringing water and they represent pipes from the Delta conveyance system. The green lines are representing pipes that, for us, delivering water to all the different water retailers in the county. We do have 3 water treatment plants, Rinconada, Penitencia, and Santa Teresa. All sorts of pumping stations, we're managing waterways. And most important, for today, is one additional thing that we manage, and that is the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center. That's up on 237 at Zanker, and we will talk more about that soon. So before we do that, we do have a little poll check. We want to get your thoughts on something here, and that is, what percent of the water that we distribute in the county comes from local sources? What do you think? Is it 15%, 30%, 50%, or 70%? What percent of the water we manage do we obtain from our local sources? You can see a lot of folks coming in and answering that question. So we'll give a couple folks a little bit more time. We're already pretty close to getting everyone's response. And we will close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so interesting to see almost exact a split between those answering 30% and 50%. So the correct answer actually is 30%. So, we're here in the learning experience, as KJ has said, so no worries on if you didn't know, but isn't that surprising? I thought it was surprising. Only 30% of our water portfolio comes from local sources, and that means both groundwater aquifers and those 10 reservoirs I mentioned. But half of the water comes from outside the county. So that's 40% of the total water we typically get is from the Delta. 10% is typically from Hetch Hetchy. And I'm using the word typically here because guess what? We're in extreme drought, despite this wonderful rain that we had this last weekend. And both the state and federal water systems had to reduce the amount of water they sent to us because of the extreme drought. So we had to rely more on our local resources, and that means taking more water out of the aquifers. And we also had to make some arrangements with some other water agencies in the state to purchase additional water. 15% of our water is from conservation. And so that's something that we continually strive for, and we've made that request out to the public in this extreme drought as well. And then the last element of our portfolio, again, is what we're going to talk more about today, 5% recycled water. Today, we don't drink that recycled water. Today, we're using it in agricultural and industrial purposes and some other things we'll talk about. But we hope to expand that in the future to be able to not have to rely so much on water from outside our county. All right, so another thing we're certainly concerned about, as you would imagine, if we're looking at things that, what does Valley Water worry about? Valley Water worries about drought, and we worry about climate change. Those are 2 key items, and this extreme drought is so severe, it's at the same level as the 76-77 drought, so is one of the driest seasons that we've had on record. This that ended this last year, so now we're starting a new year, and maybe we'll get maybe things will improve, but we have a long way to go to make up. So take a look at this next graphic to give you an idea of how severe things have been. So Lake Oroville in our last really nice wet year, 2017, very healthy. This is one of the main state reservoirs up beyond Sacramento, and certainly get a lot of water from there, as do a number of agencies in the state. But then as of April, very, very low. That's because very little runoff, very little snow melt. And then all the way into July, it's quite shocking, actually, if you take this next photo and you see basically we have no lake. It's just, I find it very shocking personally, but we're hoping to see just this weekend, this lake rose 23 feet. It was the article I saw in the paper. So it's got a long ways to go, but at least it's going the right direction at the moment. So we have some work to do. And beyond climate change and drought, population growth is another concern. The census came in and said, we're stable right now, but it's still expected to increase. So we have to account for more people needing water. And another thing that we are worried about is aging infrastructure. One of which you've probably heard about is the Anderson Dam and Reservoir. This dam was deemed seismically unstable for a major earthquake beyond 7.0 on the Richter scale. And so we need to, first they thought we could repair it, reinforce it, but then after further study, it was determined that that isn't possible. So we have actually had to remove most of the water from this reservoir, distribute it as best we can to our other places in the county. And now work has begun on rebuilding this. So it'll be quite a big project to undertake. Beyond that, we have another exciting idea. Again, with climate change, what we expect, and I'm sure you've heard in the news and elsewhere, that we'll have more extreme events. We'll have years of very significant drought, and we'll have years of maybe very large precipitation years. And so what we're thinking of doing is taking this tiny little reservoir that's in the county, it's called Pacheco, it's the little one down in the corner there, and actually rebuilding it, or not even rebuilding it, building a new reservoir up above the current one. And what we would be able to do is store water, so the tiny little one, 5,500 acre feet. There's this next photo shows some infrastructure issues as well, which need to be addressed. But the exciting part of it is, even in a normal year, we can't capture all the water. Some water goes into the bay. So this reservoir could help us capture water and use it. And especially in those extreme wet years, we could then capture that. It's a huge amount of water, 140,000 acre feet. That's enough water for 1.4 million residents in a year. And we would then be able to actually double our capacity, our surface water capacity that we currently have. This literally is the 10 reservoirs we have now equals the current, the proposed capacity of Pacheco. So it will allow us to store water and then use that in those the future dry years that we know we will have. And I believe with that, I will now turn it back over to KJ to continue the tour.
Thank you, Michael. All right, everybody, this image that you're looking at currently are two of the facilities that we're going to talk about today. The first one is the larger facility here at the top left. That is the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. And across the street from it, and the street, by the way, is Zanker Road, for those that are familiar. Across the street is the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center. And they work together to create enhanced recycled water. So the wastewater treatment facility treats up to an average of 110 million gallons per day. And so what happens is 10 million, first of all of this water is, wastewater, right? So think about, any water inside of your house that goes down the drain, whether it's a sink, or there's a bathtub, your shower, your toilet, your dishwashing unit, or even your washer machine. All of that water goes down the drain and ends up at the wastewater facility. And so the wastewater facility will treat this water for up to 10 hours. After 10 hours, that water is now considered to be secondary treated water. And so what happens is, after 10 hours, the wastewater treatment facility will send about 10 million gallons of this water to the purification center daily to be purified. And so what we're going to use this purified water for is to enhance the recycled water, to just make it a little bit more clear. All right. And so recycled water, what do we use recycled water for? We use it for landscaping, industrial means, and also for agriculture. All right. So this, in the total, this water will be used for agriculture. All right. And so when we talk about the Purification Center, we want to make sure everybody is familiar with the water cycle. I'm sure you all are. The reason why we bring up the water cycle is because the water cycle is why we are able to have water in the first place. All of the water here on Earth has been here forever. The Earth has its natural way of replenishing water worldwide, and that's through the water cycle. So even all of the water we use every day or create every day, when I say create, I mean I'm referring to the wastewater that we create every day. The water cycle naturally replenishes it, cleans it. So the only thing with the water cycle is that the water cycle can take a long time. As you all saw, we just got a lot of rainfall just recently. When is the last time we got a lot of rainfall like that, right? It's been a while. Already it's gone. It hasn't been raining as much today, right? And so, in order to, make sure we have enough water for the 2 million residents in the Santa Clara County, we must find ways to bolster our own local water supply. As Michael talked about previously, that it's hard to rely on imported water when it's affected by drought and climate change and things of that nature. And right now we use 50% of our water capacity come from imported means. And so we can, shrink that number down and, boost our local water supply number up. We are trending in the right direction. And so the Purification Center is a model to do so. The Purification Center is a model for a drought-resistant system where we do not have to rely on imported water or the water cycle as much. And so it pretty much it's a way to speed up Earth's natural process of recycling water, cleansing water. The Purification Center is, all right? And so there's other places in the world that are using this technology. And so, this is not new technology. It's been going on, but it's just newer to the Santa Clara County. So what you're looking at here is a graph of what's called total dissolved solids, TDS for short. And so the reason why we talk about total dissolved solids is because total dissolved solids measures the dissolved solid content in a solution of water. So TDS does not describe how clean water is. It only describes how clear it is, how many particles are in the water. So if you notice all the way to the right-hand side, you have seawater. Seawater has a TDS of about 35,000. Most of this is salt content. In the green column, this is the Santa Clara County tap water. So the tap water that flows through your pipes is perfectly fine. You can drink it. You can use it how you want. It has a TDS of about 250. All right. So remember that secondary treated water. So if we all turn on the sink right now, let's say you all turned on the sink and then you turned it off, all of that water you just sent down the drain is going to the wastewater treatment facility. And remember, 10 hours of treatment. After 10 hours of treatment, this water will now be called secondary treated water, which is indicated here in the gray column. Secondary treated water has a TDS count of about 800, and we measure this in milligrams per liter, about 800. So what happens is 10 million gallons of this secondary treated water is sent to the Purification Center daily to be purified down to 40 TDS, And in the end, what we want to happen is we want this 40 TDS water to be blended back with what is called tertiary water. Tertiary water is the bulk of the water that remains at the wastewater facility. So I told you, the wastewater facility processes up to 110 million gallons per day. Only 10 million gallons is sent to the Purification Center. The other remaining 100 million gallons, remains at the wastewater facility for further treatment. After further treatment, this water is now called tertiary water. The tertiary water blends with the 40 TDS water, creating an enhanced recycled water solution of 500 TDS. And at 500 TDS, we know that the water is safe for plants and crops to use. As farmers use this water, the water is totally fine for these uses. So that's why it's specifically targeted at 500 TDS. Valley Water has over 900 plus customers that use this recycled water, including San Jose State, including Apple, including even Levi Stadium, where the 49ers play. All right. So here are three processes that typically, these are the three main processes at the Purification Center. And on the right-hand side, you'll notice the typical contents that are removed from each of the processes. And we're going to talk about each of these individual processes very shortly. All right, so today, what happens? So when the water leaves your home, it goes down the drain, it goes to the wastewater treatment plant. At the wastewater treatment plant, like I said, the water is processed up for 10 hours. After 10 hours, a portion of this water, the secondary treated water, is sent to the Purification Center. The remaining bulk of the water remains at the wastewater facility and now becomes tertiary water after further treatment. The two will blend together, creating an enhanced recycled water solution that's used for industrial, landscaping, and agricultural means. This is how we are currently using the water, But in the future, and we're going to talk about the future after the tour, we're going to talk about how we plan to use this purified water coming directly from the Purification Center to bolster our local water supply, or drinking water capacity more specifically. All right. So now we are about to tie up our shoelaces, our virtual shoelaces, because if we were on campus right now, we would actually start walking. So we'll tie up our virtual shoelaces and begin our virtual walking tour. All right. And so I'm now going to hand the mic back to Michael so he can get us started.
Great, thanks, KJ. So yeah, actually, when you arrive at the parking lot at our facility, there's a little classroom right adjacent to the parking lot. You go in there first, you get this first part of the presentation, and then, like KJ says, you're ready to walk and you come out outside. A couple overview things to tell you that haven't been said already. Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center is a collaboration and partnership between Valley Water and the cities of San Jose and Santa Clara. And it's a testing facility. Its purpose is to study water reuse. We opened this facility in 2014. And as KJ said, we usually, typically in a day, 8 million gallons of purified water, advanced purified water, is produced. Takes about 7.5 hours for the water to go through all the treatments that we're about ready to talk about. And we'll love to have you come join us in person when we're able to reopen and have in-person tours. All right, so now we get those shoes going and we're walking on over to the first station on campus and at the Purification Center. And that is the intake pumps. So the water, as KJ's already told you, comes from San Jose, Santa Clara wastewater facility, and it comes to us via a 1/4-mile pipeline, and then it arrives here at these intake pumps. And there's three things that we need to do with the water at this point. We need to pressurize this water, we need to disinfect it, and then we send it on to be strained. So in terms of pressurizing, the reason we do that is because we have to bring the water pressure up to 40 PSI, 40 pounds per square inch. And that is, we do that to be able to get it through these first couple of treatment steps. That's the pressurized level that it needs. And after that, we need to add some disinfection to the water. And we are doing that to prevent the control of biogrowth in the system in these first couple steps. So from there, we go and walk on over to the auto strainers. Not too far away as you're walking on at the Purification Center, and this is what they look like. And what do the auto strainers do? Well, the auto strainers are taking out things, kind of the bigger things in the water. So if you wanted to do this, and I don't know exactly why you'd want to do this, maybe curiosity, if you had a glass and you were able to get some of the water at this point and you were to hold up that glass, you would go, ugh, this kind of looks like river water. You know, there's floating particles in this water. So it's a bit unclear. And what we can do here It's, there's small suspended solids, not big things, small suspended solids. And what we can do here is take those smaller, visibly, you can see them with the naked eye, things out of the water. So things approximately 300 microns in size and larger, about the diameter of human hair. And so what we do next, and this next graphic, is we'll show you how it looks. So here is this long tube, kind of looks like maybe a pasta colander, whatever you want to say. It's got this strainers, a basket, a wire basket, however you want to describe it. We push the water through the center of these tubes, and we force it to go outside those tubes. And what happens is the things that are, those things that you could kind of see get caught on the inside. And we have little vacuum devices that pick those things up on the middle and the inside of these tubes, as well as we take every 30 minutes, we backwash those things. And so we clear all that stuff out so that we can then do more and treat more water as we're going forward. So that's the way we do that. And we take all those things that we don't want, and we send them to a wet well, and then periodically all that stuff gets sent back across the street to the Santa Clara wastewater facility for further treatment. We have this special interprocess tank on the campus that allows us to get that water to do the backwashing. So that's how we do this portion of it. And now it's time for yet another question for you. And we asked this next question to kind of give you an idea of the relative total capacity of the Purification Center. And the question is, by how much would we need to expand the Purification Center's current capacity to handle all the indoor water needs for Santa Clara County residents? How much would we have to increase the capacity? Is it 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, or 50 times? So folks can give your thoughts on that. It's just, again, to kind of give you a rough idea of the capacity issues that we need to think about while we're trying to become more independent for our water needs. And I will turn this over to KJ to give you that answer and end the poll and then continue the tour.
Thank you, Michael. All right, I will be closing the poll in 5, 4, get your homework in, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So let's see what you all said. All right, we have another bell curve going here. I'm noticing a trend with you all. So we have about, most of you said 10 times or 20 times more. So the answer is about 20 times more. As Michael said, it's a hypothetical. We would not have to rely solely on the Purification Center for our water needs, but if needed to do so, we would have to expand about 20 times more capacity at the center to do so. All right, here's an inside look of the facility. We have microfiltration on the right-hand side. That is the next process we will be discussing. On the left-hand side, we have reverse osmosis, arguably the most important part of the whole Purification Center process. And then in the very back, we have the ultraviolet light disinfection portion of the center. So now we're going to show you a little quick video on microfiltration, and I'll post a link in the chat. For anybody having trouble viewing, you can view after the tour.
During microfiltration, water is forced through racks of vessels, with each vessel containing thousands of hollow fibers. The outer wall of each fiber is made up of tiny pores, only 0.4 microns in size, or about 300 times smaller than the width of a human hair. The fibers filter out microscopic particles such as silt, protozoa cysts, bacteria, and even viruses. Microfiltration vessels are backwashed periodically to remove any buildup of particles on the membrane walls. The backwash water is returned to the pretreatment tank for reprocessing. This helps the plant recover a higher amount of pure water.
All right, all right, all right. So let's talk about microfiltration. So microfiltration is exactly what it sounds like. It's filtration on a microscopic level. And so we have 896 of these vessels that you see before you. And so the goal is to filter out the first layer of microscopic particles out of the water. Now, most large bacteria and viruses are actually removed here at this first stage. And so the water enters from the very bottom of these vessels and then shoots all the way up to the top. And along the way, there are these tiny white fibers, up to 6,000 of them inside of each vessel. If we were to cut the vessel in half, this is exactly what it would look like. And so what happens is the water must squeeze into each of these little fibers that you see here. And so there's these microscopic openings, these pores, about 300 times smaller than the width of a human hair, along the sides of each of these fibers. You cannot see them, I promise you. The openings that you do see here on the picture, that's the actual inside of the fiber. That's where the final product water will end up once it has successfully passed through the system. However, all of the debris and contaminants that are in the water that are not small enough will remain on the outside of the fibers here, and the system is backwashed every 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, all of these contaminants that we don't want in the system is flushed out of the system and essentially sent back to the regional wastewater facility for proper disposal. All right. We measure this in micron size, and microfiltration, like I said, removes a lot of large viruses and bacteria, because on a microscopic level, a lot of these contaminants that we're talking about, viruses, bacteria, they're pretty large. They're pretty large organisms, right? And so it's just a simple matter of size. Size-wise, they're not able to pass through the system, and we use pressure to make sure that we are able to squeeze out the water molecules, because the water molecules are small enough. All right, once we leave the microfiltration part of the center, we are ready to head outside to get some vitamin D, get some sun, and we are at the interprocess tank. So the interprocess tank serves two main functions. The first is it provides the water for the backwash system that we just spoke about. Secondly, the interprocess tank regulates the flow of the water going to our reverse osmosis feed pumps. And the reverse osmosis feed pumps are next, and they're in the back of the facility. And their job is to prepare the water for reverse osmosis. And our reverse osmosis is a more specific process, removing even smaller material from the water. So these pumps are pressurized a little bit more than the pumps before. These pumps are pressurized anywhere between 130 and 140 PSI. All right. Now, remember in the earlier graphic, we talked about seawater, ocean water, because people pose a good question sometimes. They'll ask us, hey, we have all of this, ocean water. 97% of the earth is made of water. How could anybody ever be in a drought? It's a great question. The only thing is, how most of the earth is surrounded by ocean water, and ocean water contains salt. And this salt we can't use currently, right? Not for our bodies at least. So we're talking about drinking water capacity. We have to, in order to use this ocean water, we have to remove the salt content from it. And so the removal of salt from seawater is called desalination. Desalination is being used in some areas, but it is not the most efficient process at the moment with current technology to extract the salt out of the water. I'll give you an example. For one, these pumps that you see here, these pumps account for about half of the energy. And there's only 3 of these. You only see 2 of them on the screen, but there's 3 of these pumps. But these 3 pumps account for about half of the total energy needed at the purification center in order to purify the water. Now, luckily, we use all renewable energy. We have a power sharing agreement with Shasta and Oroville companies. And so all of the energy we use here at the purification center is renewable energy. Even when how the water first enters the facility from across the street, it enters by way underground using gravity. And so even though that's all fine and dandy, it's lovely, right? we still have to take into account that these pumps require a lot of energy. So we were to desalinate water, which we're not doing at the facility, but we had to desalinate water. These same pumps that are pressurized around 140 PSI, they would need to be pressurized anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 PSI in order to desalinate ocean water. So that tells you right there, we're already using most of the energy for these pumps. If we had to use these same pumps, like I said, for seawater, it would be even more. And so with more energy, with more pressure requires more energy requires, more money. And so it's an expensive process, but there are places in the world, because of where they are located geographically, that have to use desalination. For example, we're in Northern California, and generally speaking, we receive a lot more rainfall than folks in Southern California. So there are places in Southern California that use desalination. They have a high population down there, higher in general than we do up here. And so they're finding ways to make sure that their citizens are receiving a sufficient amount of water for all their water usage. Just a little fun fact about, desalination I wanted you all to understand. And so once the water is pressurized, the water is now ready for the reverse osmosis process, which is next. And we're going to head back inside for that. And we have another quick video here for you all to view. And we will post a link in the chat for you all.
Reverse osmosis works by forcing water through a special plastic membrane sheet to remove compounds such as salt, organic compounds, microorganisms, and viruses. Rolls of membrane sheets are wound into cylinder-shaped elements. There are several elements inside each long-pressure vessel. As water enters the vessel, it flows over the membrane surface as it moves from one end of the vessel to the other. The membrane layer is extremely thin. It allows water to pass through or permeate while preventing other compounds from passing through. Membranes remove molecules based on their size, shape, and charge. Generally, contaminants larger than water molecules will not pass through, including most chemical contaminants and all microorganisms, such as virus and bacteria. Two streams of water are produced. Pure, clean water, called permeate, flows across the membrane sheets and passes through the membrane layers to the inside core tube. Water that does not permeate through the membrane becomes more highly concentrated in salt and other substances. This water is called concentrate. The pure permeate water flows out the tube at one end of the pressure vessel, and the concentrate water flows out another outlet. The concentrate water can then flow into other pressure vessels for the same process to happen again, so even more pure permeate water can be recovered. About 82% of all the source water becomes purified water.
All right, reverse osmosis. The main thing I want you to remember about reverse osmosis is that anything that is larger than a water molecule is removed from the water. Water molecules are very small on a microscopic level. Once again, we measure this in microns. A water molecule is about 0.0002 in micron size, okay? As I said previously, most of the large bacteria and viruses have already been removed from the water. And so now we're dealing with smaller content that is trying to remain in the water, right? And so the great thing about reverse osmosis is that not only is it about particle size, which is removed, but also it's about, charge. So particles that have charge that are small enough to actually pass through the system, they're also removed from the water. So that's the great technology that we have here. And so to give you an analogy about this, so if a water molecule were to be the size of a marble, and remember, you got to be marble size in order to get through the system. Most contaminants, when we talk about, large bacteria, viruses, salts, minerals, things of that nature, they would be, well, specifically the large bacteria and viruses, they would be the size of a skyscraper, so a large building. Even some of the more smaller, bacteria would be the size of an adult-sized human being. So just imagine an adult-sized human being, a human, one of us, or a building trying to squeeze through a marble-sized hole. Impossible. It's not happening, right? There are some very small organic matter and proteins that are able to pass through. And if there's any pathogens that happens to be small enough to pass through or doesn't have that charge we're talking about, these contaminants are definitely taken care of at the ultraviolet light disinfection portion of the center. A lot of people, there's people worldwide that use reverse osmosis. There are bottled water users that use reverse osmosis. Some people have reverse osmosis systems even in their home that they have connected to their different pipes or whatnot, just to just to smooth out the water even more. It's very popular technology, and so I didn't mention about 82% of the water that passes through successfully makes it through the process. The other about 18% does not pass through, and we call that concentrate. So the concentrates are this rejected material that I'm referring to. And, like I said, the regional wastewater facility sends 10 million gallons per day to the purification center, but the purification center successfully purifies about 8 million gallons per day. So we produce about 8 million. And so the reverse osmosis is a big reason for that, because the reason for the difference in the 10 million and the 8 million gallons that's actually produced is that about 2 million gallons of this water is actually rejected material that is removed from the water, even from once the regional wastewater facility sends us the water. So only about 80% of the water successfully gets through the whole purification process, all right? And so once the water has now gone through reverse osmosis, it's very clear, about 99% of impurities are removed from the water. And now we're going to head back outside to our decarbonation towers. And I'm going to hand the mic back to my colleague, Michael, so he can tell you about those.
Thanks, KJ. Yeah, so now we're back outside. We're at the decarbonation towers. So as KJ mentioned, the water is now very, very clear. It's approaching that 40 TDS, but before we do need to do one more major treatment, which is ultraviolet light disinfection. But before we can do that, we have a little issue to take care of, because what's happened over the last couple of steps is the CO2 has been formed in the water, is now present in the water, and that needs to be removed. And so what we do with that is we take the water, the RO concentrate, and we send it into these towers. We also send air in at the same time, and we force inside those towers are these diffuser balls, and we force that all together. And what ends up happening is the CO2 gets separated from the water. The CO2 passes out the top of these tanks. It's actually a very small amount of CO2. The state of California says it's nothing of concern to them. It doesn't even need to be regulated. It's such a small amount. But it is important from our standpoint, because CO2 is acidic, and CO2 can degrade our equipment, especially the pipes and the storage tanks kind of downstream, if you will, from here. So we do need to do this step in order to take care of that issue. So at that point, then we go back inside the facility for the last major step, and that is, as I mentioned, UV light disinfection. I will go ahead and pop this last little video link into the chat, but KJ will play the video and then we'll tell you more about it.
The next stage is ultraviolet light. The water is exposed to strong UV light. This process removes any trace organic molecules. The process is similar to the one used in medicine and dentistry to sterilize equipment.
Okay, You can see in that video and also in this photo, these large silver or shiny gray objects. There's actually a set of 6. If you see those, what kind of look like these round porthole things with the pipes at the top. So we call those ultraviolet light trains, and each train has 2 ultraviolet light reactors. So water gets sent through at least one, it gets sent through one of these trains. And what we do is expose the water to the high intensity ultraviolet light. And there in these trains are reactors. And in each reactor are these 40 high intensity ultraviolet light lamps. And we have a graphic on that to show you. And so the water only needs 30 seconds. We do it twice, but the water only needs 30 seconds of exposure to do what we need to do. And what we're looking to do here is to further disinfect the water. This is a redundancy step to take care of anything that passed through that KJ mentioned. And what ultraviolet light does is it will disrupt the DNA of any pathogens that did happen to make it through, and then they are not able to multiply. It also breaks down any volatile chemical compounds. It breaks the bonds of those chemical compounds. And so the inside of these trains are mirrored, so then the water really gets fully exposed to the ultraviolet light. And if you think about one thing that we hear so much about, if there's a problem with water or there's some kind of emergency, the thing you can do is you can boil water. And boiling water will help you stay safe. You can then drink it. Well, ultraviolet light disinfection is actually 20,000 times more efficient and effective than boiling water. So you can tell that it's a very, very effective process. But nevertheless, still, we have one more thing that has been deemed by the water reuse industry and the state of California that we need to do, and that is add one additional redundancy step to the process, and that is adding advanced oxidation. And this is a very clever another way to make sure that the water is safe to drink, because what we're doing is we're adding very small trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide. And what that does is it reinforces the disinfection. It also, hydrogen peroxide dissipates very quickly, especially in these tiny little amounts that we have. It does its job, and then we don't have to worry about it. So now we have advanced purified water. But one thing that's exciting to think about and I'll let you tell you about is that you might have already actually consumed or come in contact with advanced purified water. There's different places throughout the country, many places in the state. For example, if you've been in Orange County since 2008, Orange County Water District has been producing advanced purified water for drinking since 2008. They're currently at 100 million gallons a day. So Orange County, what's in Orange County? If you've been to someone's house, you've been to a restaurant, you've been to Disneyland, you might have had tap water at a restaurant, you might have showered at one of the hotels around Disneyland, you have most likely come in contact with advanced purified water. So it is definitely safe. It's something that's been happening for quite a while, as you can tell. And now just the last finish up with my portion. This giant storage tank is where the water ends up next. I like to think of this as a kind of a little bit different way. This is almost like a giant on-off switch, this storage tank. It holds 2.25 million gallons of water. And why is it an on-off switch? And the reason for that is because when the water level goes down to a certain point, then the whole system kicks on. This is a fully automated system. So when we need water, the system kicks it on. There are operators always on site to make sure things are running smoothly and any issues that come up are addressed, but it is an automatic system. And as KJ already mentioned, the water that we produce is used for agricultural, industrial, and industrial purposes. And so that's how we use the water. And now let's think about, and KJ will tell you about, where we can use the water in the future.
Thank you, Michael. All right, everybody, that will conclude our walking tour. And so just a little bit about Valley Water and some efforts that we have going on moving forward, and what are we doing, in terms of looking to the future? How do we want to use this water? And so currently we have was drafted, it's called the Countywide Water Reuse Master Plan. The master plan outlines different ways to build on existing water recycle systems and complete projects for both non-potable and potable reuse, including purified water projects to boost our local drinking water supplies to up to 24,000 acre-feet per year. So potable just means drinkable or allocated for drinking purposes. And so when we talk about potable, non-potable, and I'm going to get into that, what does that look like? So non-potable means, right now, the water that we're using for the Purification Center, we're not using for potable means, we're recycling it. We're using it for recycled water systems. And then potable, we're going to talk about what that looks like. And just for you all know, an acre foot, as we're talking about expanding this to 24,000 acre feet a year, an acre foot will actually satisfy up to 10 people for a year of water supply. So 24,000 acre feet is going to make a big impact. And eventually you want to expand this number to 45,000 acre feet a year. All right. And so Valley Water is also currently evaluating the possibility of building a purification center in either Palo Alto or San Jose, or both. We are talking to both of these, cities. And real quick, I'm going to put on this slide right here while I'm talking about it, just so you can all be familiar. And so this will definitely help bolster our local water supply. This new facility will produce 10 million gallons of purified water per day that will be used to help replenish our groundwater. Part of this project includes installing the pipeline necessary to carry the purified water from the facility to the Los Gatos Percolation Ponds along the Los Gatos Creek. All right. And so when we talk about our groundwater basins, we are referring to more of a non-potable reuse way. So here, if you look at this image here, basically this is describing how we plan to use this water in the future, right? And so even if we were to tap into our drinking water supply using this purified water, this water wouldn't directly go to your home. No, it will either go two routes. One, it will go to our groundwater aquifers. This is more of a non-potable, more of a natural way. Think of it when it rains. When it rains, water comes down, some of the water soaks into the soil and drops into our groundwater basins. And so we have what's called percolation ponds. Percolation ponds are designed for water to trickle down, to percolate down into the soil, and then become part of the groundwater basins. And we later pump that water back up and use that water for our drinking water capacity. We're doing this now. Everywhere people are doing this. Orange County, this is not anything new. But what would be new for us is using the purified water for this, all right? And then after pumping the water back up, we will send this to one of your water retailers, and the water retailer that you are currently using will send the water to your home. That's non-potable reuse. A more potable reuse direction will look in terms of after leaving the purification center, this water will go to one of our existing drinking water treatment plants. You can learn more about our existing drinking water treatment plants at our water infrastructure tour series that we hold publicly. They have been on hold currently, but I believe our next one starts up in January. It's a 4-part series. And so either December or January. It's a 4-part series. And so basically this is part number 4. If you want to learn about the other 3 parts, you can sign up. It's for free and learn about other things that Valley Water are doing. And you can also learn more about our other 3 drinking water treatment facilities that we are currently using for our drinking water capacity. So then at that point, the water would then go to one of your retailers and then sent to your home. All right. And so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to open the floor up for Q&A, questions and answers. And at the same time, I'm going to launch a last poll, similar to the poll that you all took in the very beginning of the session, just to get a temperature check of how you all feel about the purified water technology after the tour. But if you guys have any questions, I don't see any questions at the moment in the Q&A function. If you have any questions, go ahead and type your question in or whichever you prefer. I'm not sure if we're able to unmute you or not if you want to talk, but definitely type your questions in if you have any questions. In the meantime, fill out the poll. Here are some other ways you guys can stay connected. Like I said, our water infrastructure tour series. We have K through 12 distance learning as well. It's a part of our education and outreach program that deal with the youth. So we have youth-driven, material for them. And then also some other ways you all can get involved is our like cleanacreek.org if you want to be involved in some volunteer opportunities where we find a local creek in your area with some other folks. We provide you the materials needed to help sustain that creek. Or you can also sign up for one of our coastal cleanup days. We have those about twice a year. We just had one recently where volunteers come out and Valley Water employees, and we give you all equipment and we go out there with you and help pick up trash around the Santa Clara County. We just picked up about 29,000 pounds of trash around the Santa Clara County. So wherever destination is closest to you, our problem sites, our problem areas, we will sign you up for there. So here are some websites that you can sign up in order to do that. I do see one question here. And the question is, provide any information on cost of the whole system or individual components. All right. And so let's see if we can post a link for you in regards to the cost as far as the whole system. I will say this, the total project for the Purification Center was around $74 million for the whole building, for the whole structure to be created, right? As far as if you're talking about the cost per year, as far as how much energy we're using or money is needed for this process, Michael, do you have a specific number for that or anything to add to that question?
Well, thanks, KJ. So I'm wondering if our subject matter expert has also joined us. I don't see him on the list, but
Dave's not with us at the moment.
Yeah, the proposal, I think it was in one of the graphics, the proposal for the new project is 500 to 600 million. And that is because it's a much larger facility. It's also the piping and all the requirements of the newer technology plus the additional steps that we've talked about. So that is actually going to be handled through a public-private partnership. That money will be paid for by a private entity, and then the way the money comes back to them is through the usage of the water. So when the water starts flowing, we would then, as residents and users of the water, then pay the water rates of that facility.
Thank you, Michael. We have another question here saying, do you have any information about the CO2 capturing system? I'm curious about how do plastic super frame balls work. So the diffuser balls inside of the decarb towers, they're designed to shake up the water. So think of a carbonated drink. That's pretty much what's going on here. There's throughout the whole purification process, there has been some CO2 buildup. For example, there has been some disinfectants that was added to the water in the beginning of the process to prevent mineral buildup within the pipes. All right, but a lot of this of these chemicals that are, and it's not a lot of chemicals at all being put in the water, but some of the disinfecting chemicals, they dissipate pretty quickly, but they're designed for that reason. And sometimes that introduces CO2. And so there's just some trapped air in the water at the point of the towers. And so the diffuser balls are made strictly just to shake up the water. So think of a soda, think of a carbonated water yourself. And we're not in the business of making carbonated water, but if we were, I guess we would keep the CO2 in there. But that's essentially what's going on here. You shake it up, however you do it. We use the diffuser balls. It shakes it up and it slowly starts releasing the air pressure out of the water, and it slowly flows up to the top of the air release valve there. So that's pretty much what's going on at that phase. All righty. Any more questions? Any more questions? We appreciate all of you for your participation and showing up here today. Very important topic, especially with the drought that we're in. And let me, re-emphasize that just because we just got some rainfall does not mean we're out of a drought whatsoever. We would need many more days, weeks of rainfall in order to, be out of the drought. So we are not out of the drought. So let's all just do what we can to help conserve water. And in the meantime, we need your support. So hopefully after today's tour, you have become a a water advocate, a purified water advocate, because we definitely need your voice and your support into getting the word out there, and getting different measures passed so that we can use this water to bolster our local water system. And we currently are in some degree we're using this for recycled water means, but to actually use the purified water. Like I said, Orange County, they send us bottled waters all the time, little plastic bottled waters, right? Which has purified water in it that used to be wastewater. And they're already using this water down in Orange County, and they use it every day. They turn it over, and it's part of the drinking water system. So this is not a foreign concept at all. It's just new for our area. All righty. Well, it looks like we have no more questions. If Teresa, if you had anything you wanted to share with your guest before we leave here.
No, I think that was great. Thank you so much for doing this tour with us and walking us around the place. It was really fun. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and